All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm so glad I'm actually on. I had a lot of trouble getting going today, as you can imagine, or certainly you may have been imagining since I got started so late. Several different issues cropped up. I'm actually moving my channel from one Google account to another. It's going to stay the same for you, no differences, but there's a lot of different settings that needed to be tweaked as a result. But I'm going to keep doing this the way I've been doing it. Hopefully there won't be a lot of notice to you, except when I'm delayed as I was today. So I apologize for that. Also, other news. Yeah, I listened to yesterday's program with Arlen and didn't get a bad response in terms of the viewers, at least for my live stream. The response wasn't bad, but unfortunately, the audio from Arlen's end wasn't good at all. And I have made that video, I've taken it out of the public setting. So you can still find it if you have the link, but you won't find it otherwise. I'm going to replace it. I was able to edit out the double audio. The duplicate sound that came from his mic bleeding into mine. That's the problem. I can hear him. I don't wear the headsets because I can't stand those things over my big cans over my ears. Really irritates me after a while. So I just have a speaker, but I've got to have the speaker at a lower volume to make sure you don't hear the back feed. And usually I can see it. I don't know. Yesterday, I guess I was so engrossed in the conversation with Arlen, I didn't observe that there was a significant amount of feedback. So I'm sorry about that. That's clearly on my end, no question about it. We'll keep moving forward with Halitics. Don't forget, click like, click subscribe. That's how we can keep this going. And I'm more and more convinced that this is an incredibly important service. I don't want to call it a service because this is what I like to do. So I'm not serving you. I'm serving myself. I'm doing this for me. But I'm really convinced we need to do this because I just don't see real alternatives on the left. There are a couple of programs out there I really like. I like Brianna Joy Gray, and we'll play some clips from her latest program. I like her. She was on the Hill rising for, a couple of years, maybe less than a year, less than 2 years. Now she does Just Bad Faith, and she's a guest on other podcasts as well. I thought her program, her most recent Bad Faith, I believe it's the most recent with Kim Iverson, another host, is really, really good. And it points up the very important differences between the two of them. There are aspects of Iverson's hosting, for want of a better term, streaming podcast that I like, but she's clearly out of her element when it comes to Brianna Joy Gray. Brianna Joy Gray actually is proposing viable solutions. And that's what this program is called. Is there a path forward today? Is there a path forward? And it's in the wake of the disastrous debate, disastrous from both of the two major party candidates, both of the duopoly candidates. But I could have said that before the debate, even if they had both been glib and if Biden had appeared 20 years younger. I'd still ask, is there a sustainable path forward? Because I'm not really interested in how they appear. That doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is their policies. And both of them have awful policies. And so does, I'm just giving you a little bit of a billboard here, just a little bit of a teaser. So does the candidate that Kim Iverson is backing. That candidate also has awful policies. And that's what I care about. That's what matters. And I have so much trouble convincing other people or persuading others that that's what you need to focus on is policy. What does the candidate believe in? What are they going to do? What policies, what laws are they going to propose? Are they going to push Congress to impose, to enact? What executive orders will they sign? What wars will they start or get us out of? That's what matters. It started to hit my head because it seems so impossible sometimes to get folks to get this. That's why Biden is so awful, because his policies are awful. People used to say, oh, I like Barack Obama. He's a nice person. His family is so wonderful. You see that meme all the time. Oh, no scandal, no drama, Obama. Okay, who the hell cares if he escalates in Afghanistan? Who cares if he has a beautiful family? if he's signing trade deals left and right that are bankrupting our working people? Who cares if he's, if he's glib and he's good looking and he went to Harvard? Who cares about any of that if he bails out the big banks but not working people? Those are the things that matter. And I don't know why others don't get this. It drives me friggin' up the wall. But when you recognize that it's policy, that's the important thing. When you vote for people, when you elect them, not how well they speak, not if they own the other person in a debate, not if they don't have a quavery voice, none of that really matters. It's whether they back genocide. It's whether they choose corporations over people. It's whether they're there to help folks who are caught in a terrible disaster like a hurricane. It's whether they're going to take on the fossil fuel earth destroyers. That's what matters. And neither candidate will do that. The death toll Gaza just gets worse and worse. It's so bad. I mean, every friggin' day, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 people killed, murdered by Israel. So this is from WAFA. That's a Palestinian news aggregator news service. 28 more killed in the past 24 hours, at least. So they say at least because remember what Fox News told us. The infrastructure is so destroyed. Israel has done so much harm with American weapons. Israel has done so much damage, so much destruction that nobody really knows. Nobody can really be certain how many people Israel has killed in the last 24 hours. We can be certain they killed that many because we found the bodies. But I don't know. Maybe some of those bodies were lying in a smoldering ruin for 3 or 4 days. I guess the theory is if a building is bombed, it was standing one moment, it's not standing the next. We go in there and we drag 5 people out. Some of their bodies are still warm. We can probably figure, yeah, they were just killed. They weren't killed 3 weeks ago. But we can't always, they can't always be sure. So 28 killed in the past 24 hours. We know that Israel's torturing people. We know they're raping women. They're raping men. That's what Israel's doing. That's what our president, the one you, maybe you, I don't know, some of you feel we have to reelect or our freedoms, our democracy will be all gone. Let me tell you, they're gone. They're gone. I wanted to play from this debate. I talked about it yesterday. There were a few things that kind of caught my attention. I know there's been a lot of talk, and it's fair that Trump lied, and I got some emails about that. Well, he did lie about how many thousands of, that there weren't a whole lot of people. It was a small showing. He said it was a relatively small number of people, and that's not true. That was a lie. It was a lot of people. Well, again, look, it's not, I'm not being a lawyer. There were a lot of people. I thought it was a lot. I would say yes. I would agree with that. But there were, the conservative estimate is 100,000 people were in Tahrir Square in Egypt during the Arab Spring. 100,000. There were maybe a couple of thousand who went into the Capitol building. So is 2,000 relatively small compared to 100,000? Yeah, I'd say it is. So again, that wouldn't be the lie that I would hang my hat on if I was trying to call Trump a liar. Don't forget, click like, click subscribe. I gotta get, I want those numbers up. I want you to subscribe. I want you to be part of Halitics. Oh, I want to have that subscribe now button fully visible. So let me try. I'll play it one more time for you. Oh, there we go. There, look, it's something. You can see the bell ringing. Woohoo! This is Trump v. Biden. I don't even know how many. I was in Germany We'll talk about that too. I got some feedback on my flight to Germany. Hal, are you? I asked, but I wasn't exactly called a hypocrite. I asked if I was a hypocrite. I asked this to Arlen. He had no trouble. He said like, "Oh no, you should go enjoy yourself. It was a bucket list thing. You said that," which is all true. But in the end, yeah, I can't really I was asked, how do you justify the trip to Germany in light of your being a climate crisis activist, someone who's fighting the climate crisis? I can't really. I mean, I did something that made things worse for the climate. That's just the bottom line. I'm a human being. I did it. I recognize that I do things that aren't perfect. I do things that are wrong. That's why I propose policies that would, address the incentives that we all have on occasion to do things that can be harmful. All right, let's play from the debate. I want to get this. This is, let's see if I get this right. This is, I hope I'm right here, because as you know, I was scrambling. When I say I hope I'm right, I hope I get the right place in the queue here. This, I believe, is going to be Dana Bash talking to Trump. Yeah, I think this is right. So let's watch this. By the way, I got to say this. I told you, I don't really care how they look on this stage. Yeah, I don't want a president who's going to keel over, as I think Biden might. That's not really my first priority in a president, is somebody, but my first priority, let me say it differently. My first priority in a president isn't really their health, right? I mean, I want someone who's relatively healthy, but I want someone whose policies I agree with even more. Now, I get probably Biden isn't really driving policy in the White House right now. I can't remember who said this. I think it was Sagar, maybe. Crystal and Sagar. But I wouldn't care that much if I liked Anthony Blinken and I thought he really had the best interest of the Palestinian people at heart and was going to do what he could to rein in, which, and by the way, what he can is an awful lot if he has the president's backing. If I thought that Anthony Blinken was going to rein in, or is reining, if Anthony Blinken were right now stopping Israeli genocide rather than abetting it, I'd be like, great, I can reelect Biden if Anthony Blinken is going to stay. If I liked Anthony Blinken, right? If there, other advisors, say Federal Energy Commission, right? Let's say that Federal Energy Commission, FEC, was doing a bang-up job preventing oil and gas and coal companies from more drilling, more extracting. Be like, well, all right, so Biden's lost about 20 miles per hour on a fastball that was never that fast to begin with. But hey, we're not drilling like we used to. We're cutting back. We're cutting back even more. I'd be like, okay, fine. So I don't, so maybe he's not the healthiest guy. I hope he lasts. But I support him because his administration is what I'm either supporting or not. And just adjusting the mic just a little bit, folks, you probably see me do that. So I'm good with that if I liked his policies, or I liked the policies that his administration in his name was putting in place. But that's not the case, right? All right, here's Dana Bash. One of the, she's I was never a big fan of Dana Bash. I never really had a problem with Dana Bash, as compared to other hosts, right, on CNN or elsewhere. I was like, she's okay. She never really meant much to me, right? I thought it was kind of innocuous. But she's come out now as this ardent Zionist, aggressively attacking the student protesters and lapping up the Israeli Hasbara, which is their word for propaganda. So I like to use their words, right? Their Hasbara, she laps it up. She spreads it. She disseminates it. So, not a fan. Not a fan. Here she asks a fair question. This is a very, very fair question from Ms. Bash to Joe Biden. Let's play it. Oh, we got to hear it.
To get Hamas and Israel to end the war. You have 2 minutes.
I'll just start again. The question is here we go. Let's just
additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
All right, let me stop it. His expression, he looks so lost. That's what I was going to say. He really looks bad there. By the way, give me a call, 240-283-7262. No, 240-242-5646. 240-242-5646 if you want to chat. And also, I'm looking at the live chat, so hopefully I do have live chat activated, and I also have it set up so that when you watch this show, when it's not live, when it's already, recorded, past, after it's been uploaded and recorded, you should see the live chat. So hopefully there's live chat. I've heard that maybe there is. Maybe the chat is being stifled. I don't know if I buy that, but maybe. The question to Biden, who again looked so lost. I mean, it looks terrible. Let me just see if I can go back and show it to you one more time, because I was like really kind of, I have to say, it's a little troubling. Look at the eyes there. We'll see if we can blow that up for you. Doesn't he just look like he's just, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but it's troubling. It's really, really troubling. There we go. Let me just show you that. So you can see he's really lost. He's really lost in that shot. And yeah, it's not good. All right, let's go back to the question, which is, what leverage will you use to bring about a ceasefire? And here's Biden.
Everyone from the United Nations Security Council, straight through to the G7, to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself, have endorsed the plan I put forward. All right,
so he's saying that his plan is a little hard to understand, but because he kind of started his answer in the middle. But what he said is everyone from the Security Council to Netanyahu has endorsed his plan. And that, I know we were talking about Trump's lies. That, I don't know, say it's a lie. Because I think he probably believes that. I really do. I think he believes that. But it's false. It's not the case. Netanyahu has not endorsed his plan. Let me see if we can get that again. I want to play it one more time because I want to get it from the beginning. I don't want to miss anything for you. I don't want to mislead you, misrepresent. So here we go again. We'll even start with a question. It's really, really important stuff. What's more important than stopping genocide? Nothing.
Additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council, straight through to the G7, to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself, have endorsed the plan I put forward.
All right, so he says everyone, including Netanyahu, has endorsed the plan. I mean, you heard him say that. That is false. It's just not a true statement. And it's troubling, very troubling, frankly, that he would say that. I don't think he's lying. He's said this several times. But the fact is, Netanyahu has not endorsed the plan. And he shouldn't, Biden shouldn't say that he has when that's not the case. So let's hear. I mean, is that look, if you're going to say, oh, well, Trump's lies, he lies like it's going out of style. So therefore, you see the little orange cone. I don't think we want to see that. Let's go to the video here.
Tonight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying President Biden last week gave an incomplete description of an Israeli offer for a ceasefire in Gaza.
It's time for this war to end.
Netanyahu under pressure from Israel's far right, saying it's incorrect that Israel agreed to a permanent ceasefire without the...
All right, so he's saying, no, we didn't. We did not agree to the plan. I mean, this is back in early June, right? It's a month ago. June 3rd, I believe, is the date of this breaking news. Israel has never agreed to the ceasefire proposal. They may have told Blinken at one point, but they have repeatedly pulled back from any endorsement of the U.S. plan. So when Biden says, oh, everyone agrees with my proposal, including Netanyahu, I'm not going to call it a lie because I have no idea if he believes it. But it's not true. And it's in a very, very bad untruth because it perpetuates the endless war there. As long as the sense is that Israel is not the stumbling block, is not the preventative of a ceasefire, is not preventing the ceasefire, there can never be a ceasefire. Only when Israel is pressured to stop killing Gazans might it stop. But as long as Israel is being told, as long as the U.S. is saying, oh no, Israel wants a ceasefire, it's all on Hamas, it's all on, then where's the pressure on Israel? None. And Israel clearly doesn't want a ceasefire. You just heard Netanyahu say, we don't want it.
Complete destruction of Hamas and release of all hostages first.
All right, so he's saying we want the destruction of Hamas and all hostages first. That'll never happen. That will never happen, and that's not the U.S. proposal, and Netanyahu never agreed to the U.S. proposal.
The White House pushing back, insisting the president fairly and honestly describes the Israeli proposal.
So I don't understand that. That really is crazy. That is, Netanyahu just said, we don't agree. The proposal that the U.S. says that we agreed to, we didn't. And then Biden says, oh no, we're fairly and honestly characterizing what you've agreed to. But what's wrong with that picture? One side says, we didn't agree to it. We don't agree to it. We're not going to do what you want. We're not going to stop killing. We're not going to stop murdering. We're not going to stop laying waste to Gaza. We're not going to stop eradicating Gaza. And Biden says, oh, we fairly and honestly presented a ceasefire proposal that Israel agrees to. What's wrong with that? I mean, it's so strange. Obviously, I don't say he's lying. Doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. If that's who you want as your president, or if that's who you accept as your president, help us all, please. Help us all.
And families of the hostages clamoring for an immediate deal. A call growing louder tonight after the Israeli military confirmed the deaths of 4 more hostages in Hamas captivity.
Now, we know a lot of those people are being killed by Israel. I'm kind of digressing into this conversation because, again, the Israeli killing, the Israeli genocide is the biggest issue, right, in this election. I don't think anything, I mean, for many Americans, it's not the most important thing. And I'm not going to say that they should prioritize what I prioritize. But I think for our soul as a nation, we have to be able to restrain our biggest, most loyal ally from wiping out an entire people. You know, that to me, if we don't do that, what are we, one step removed from Nazis? So I get, yes, jobs are really, really important. Healthcare is really, really important. And if you don't have those things, or you have a crappy job and you work 3 jobs and you still are barely making enough to pay the rent, you don't have healthcare, then I get you don't have the luxury that I have to worry about what Israel's doing in Gaza. But even for that person, I'll bet you they care, because they know that billions of dollars are going to kill Gazans. They know that tens of billions of dollars are going to kill Russians and perpetuate endless war in Ukraine. And they know they're getting nothing. So I would never vote for a president who's so mistaken, so beyond, understanding what's happening in the Middle East, that he claims that Israel's agreed to a deal that their president themselves has said, no, we don't agree. We don't agree. Even if it means our hostages will die. We don't agree.
Today, we met the parents of American hostage Hirsch Goldberg Poland. What is your message to the leaders of Israel?
So, American, right? The completely unconditional support that the U.S. under Biden, that the Biden administration is giving Israel, which, Biden apparently says, well, they agreed to the ceasefire. No, they didn't. the unconditional support that Biden is offering Netanyahu means that this American will remain a hostage. A ceasefire and the hostages are released. Biden's actions, Blinken's actions mean an American or Americans who are hostages will remain hostages. I can't vote for that.
Israel to the leaders of Hamas.
I would beg the leaders to act like leaders. And part of being a leader is you put your people ahead of your own personal self-interest.
All right, so that would be Joe Biden, right? Wouldn't that be Joe Biden? Put the people, the hostages, the American hostages, the Israeli hostages, the people of Gaza, the Israelis ultimately put all of their interests ahead of yours, your short-term fear of AIPAC. But he won't do it. All right, so Biden clearly terribly, terribly wrong on who's holding up. In the debate, clearly terribly wrong as to who's holding up the deal, the ceasefire that Dana Bash requested him to answer. Biden just either, I don't say he's lying. He just doesn't know. He just doesn't understand. He's just out of it. So let's hear Trump's response, because I think it's instructive. I think it's somewhat worth hearing what Trump has to say on this. So let's see if we can get to it. See if this will work. I had so many issues. Here we go.
Notion in between. You got to ask him, as far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said
So he just said, as far as Israel and Hamas, Israel is the one. So Trump's right. Trump got this right, not Biden. So you want to play that again, because there's a little more to his answer. And this is, by the way, no brief for Trump. But Trump recognizes what's happening in the Middle East. Biden doesn't.
Israel and Hamas. Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job.
So his answer is even worse, right? I don't know if it's worse, because Biden's letting Israel do the job. Biden, by denying, I don't know that you can say this is worse, right? I honestly don't. Trump is saying, oh, let him continue the job, which I assume means killing everyone in Gaza. Sowing the fields with salt? Is that what Trump's calling for? Maybe. I know Trump would say, no, I just mean Hamas. I just have to get rid of Hamas. But that'll never happen, right? And I guess you kill everybody, maybe. I don't know. Complete genocide. So that sounds really awful. That sounds worse than Biden, even. But Biden's lie, or, untruth or misunderstanding, where he claims, Biden, that it's not Bibi, it's Hamas that's holding up the ceasefire. The function of that dishonest statement, that false statement, is to allow Israel to keep the killing going, right? Because as long as the pressure's on Hamas to agree to a deal which they already agreed to, there's nothing on Israel. And Israel will just keep, as we've seen, day after day. While I was in Germany, it didn't stop. The killing continues. So both of them are to blame. Biden's to blame. Trump isn't president, but if Trump were president, we certainly have no reason to believe things would get any better. But then again, they couldn't get any worse either. So let's just finish this part off, this little segment, and then we'll move on.
He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
All right, so I kind of think Trump kind of got that right, because from his rhetoric, in some ways, Biden is sort of sounds like a Palestinian, like, oh, we don't want him to kill, please stop it. Not, but again, a very, very weak one who's not willing to stand up to Israel in any way. They're just both terrible. Biden looks worse. Biden, I understand, you know, according to Arlen, I have no reason to doubt Arlen, by the way, on this. Trump is demented. Trump gets things wrong all the time. I'm sure that's all true. I don't deny it. But Trump doesn't look and sound as bad as Biden. Biden sounds really, really, really bad. Trump sounds the same as he always did. You know, he's unhinged. I don't deny it. But he didn't come across badly in that debate. Certainly not for him. This is Politico. Yeah, 2 new post-debate polls have bad news for Biden. And their response, oh, well, look at the other polls. Don't look at those polls. Look at these polls. Here's a flash. The average has you falling farther behind. The average of the polls shows you fall farther behind. Most people who watched that debate thought you lost, Joe. Most people thought you didn't have your, you know, couldn't get your bat around on Trump's changeup, to keep the baseball analogies flowing. So what to do here? What to do? New York Times has already said, you got to drop out, Joe. You're done. Stick a fork in you. Seems like that's what most Americans feel too. I found this to be a little bit hard to parse out exactly what CNN meant here, but I mean, I get what they mean, but I don't know how much you take from this. An overwhelming portion of voters overall, 75% say the Dems have a better chance of winning with someone other than Biden. So let's assume that Republicans are skewing that. Still a very high percent, you know, it's 40, something like that. You got to figure 40% minimum of Democrats would prefer someone other than Biden. And he won, he got 90% of the vote in a lot of those primaries. So it's not, you know, look, the polls they can lie, but in this case, they seem to paint a pretty consistent story. Biden is not doing well. He had not been doing well. He's now doing worse. Doesn't mean he'll lose. Trump isn't running away with this. It's still very close. Trump is not at 50%. But on the general election across the nation, Trump is winning. And more importantly, in the swing states, Trump is winning by more right now, according to the polls. So what do you do? What do you do? Does Biden step aside? Look, I don't care, you know, because if I thought there was going to be a good Democrat, a progressive Democrat, a Democrat who was going to fight for working people, who was going to fight against genocide, I'd be like, yeah, step aside, Joe. Who's that Democrat? Who is he? Who is she? Where are they? Marianne Williamson? I don't think so. It took the combined efforts of Brianna Joy Gray and Crystal and Sagar, who she married. She was their clergy at their wedding, or whatever the term is. To their combined efforts to say, hey, you can't really be all in for war with Ukraine, Marianne. You can't really be taking Israel's side, right? I met Marianne Williamson. She's a snake oil saleswoman. She's a crystal ball. She's crystals. She's, what do they call those people? Those self-help gurus? She's a phony. She's a charlatan. Now, if her policies were really good and she had a track record behind them, I'd say, oh, who cares? So what if she made her living, selling crap? I wouldn't care if I had reason to believe that as a president, she would govern in the best interest of the people, but I don't have any reason to believe that. She's not going to be the choice. Even though she wouldn't be a good president, even though she would pretty much bend her knee to the elites, she's not as controllable. She's not she hasn't demonstrated fealty to the, big money. So she's not going to be the choice if Biden steps down. And he might. Apparently, the New York Times says he's talking about it. This was a surprise to me. Yeah, the cutoff there, that's me. That's not the, when I cut this, when I did the slides, I cut it off at below Biden at 43%. Didn't do a great job there. So this kind of came as a surprise. And what also comes as a surprise is that my little subscribe now, it's so frustrating. Come on, man. There's so many little details of this program that drive me crazy. I got to tell you, this OBS makes it really hard, and I have to do this all myself. Makes it a little tougher. I know, whine. I was surprised. So Kamala actually, according to this one poll, would be the strongest candidate against Trump. Better than Newsom or Buttigieg, and better than Biden. Okay. Maybe it's just name recognition. I don't know. I don't really care. I wouldn't vote for her. I don't want to support her. She's not my choice. But then again, neither is Gavin Newsom and neither is Buttigieg, whatever his name is. Pete Buttigieg, not my candidate. Why not? What don't you like about him? Are you just a hater? I want a candidate who says, our support for Israel is wrong. If I'm president, it will stop. I want a president who says, our support for endless war, a proxy war with Russia, is wrong. As soon as I become president, if I become president, we will negotiate for peace with Russia. A fair deal for Ukraine, an end to the hostilities. I want a president who will say, our healthcare system is broken. It has to be rebuilt. That means Medicare for all. Fortunately for me, there's somebody who's saying that. Her name is Jill Stein. That's who I'm going to vote for. I don't think there's any question that's the right choice at this point. And it's not because Joe Biden isn't perfect. It's not because I'm letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. It's not because I have some purity test. It's because Joe Biden is harming our country and our world. Because Joe Biden is making things worse, just as Trump will if he becomes president. Just as Trump would if he becomes president. I do have a litmus test. I have to believe that the person I'm voting for will at least make a real effort to make things better for poor, struggling, and working people. Will at least try to take on the climate catastrophe. And since the evidence is in, and it shows that that's not who Joe Biden is, and that's not who Gavin Newsom is, and that's not who Pete Buttigieg is, and that's not who Kamala Harris is, and that's not who Marianne Williamson is, I'm not voting for any of them. And I'll tell you who else it isn't. It isn't RFK Jr. If you disagree, call me. Tell me what I'm getting wrong. I'll have some criticisms that I received. So I'll show you those in a few moments. But here, Biden told Ally that he's weighing whether to continue the race. Pretty interesting, isn't it? I think the writing's on the wall, folks. I don't think he's going to be running for president. I don't think he's going to be on the ballot in 2024. I hope you can read this. I'm going to show you. This was a very strange. I mean, this is a letter to the editor of the Chicago Tribune. I don't know if you'll be able to read it. It's really, I got it. It's super small. I had trouble copying it, but I will just, I'll tell you what, I'll blow it up as big as I can. And hopefully you'll be able to read it. And this is from apparently a Republican who is not a Donald Trump supporter. And this writer of a letter to the editor at the Chicago Trib, at the Trib as it's called, he wants, he says, he doesn't just want, I thought this was very strange. So that's why I really want to highlight. I know it's just a letter writer. It's not some, columnist that we can kind of go after the columnist and say this columnist doesn't know what they're talking about. This is just a letter writer who, for what they're worth is, it's worth what it's worth. But I just was so intrigued by this, so I wanted to share it. This is what the letter writer writes. During the debate, former President Trump said that Biden was the only reason he was running, and that he, meaning Trump, I don't know, I didn't watch the debate, so I watched a few snippets, I didn't see this part of it. I'll assume it's true. He'd rather be doing anything else, but had to run for the sake of our nation. Well, if Biden steps aside, and the letter writer seems to think he should, I will go further and say the Republican Party should hold Trump to his word and have him step down as well, should Biden choose not to run. I was like, what are you smoking? The Republican Party can't make Trump not run. They can't hold Trump to his word if that was his word. Trump controls his delegates just as Joe Biden controls his delegates. The Democratic Party cannot force Joe Biden to step aside. It's Joe Biden's choice. And apparently he's considering it. It's not a two-way street. It's like, oh, well, your guy stepped down, so our guy should. Or our guy is stepping down, so your guy should step down. No, the reason there's pressure on Biden to step down is because the Democratic Party leadership is very afraid Biden will lose. And they don't want him to lose. They want him to stay in power so they can keep their nice, cushy 6- and 7-figure jobs and get advanced information about what direction the stock market's going to move and what individual securities are going to go up and down and all of that. I mean, there's huge benefits. And then they can move on to CNN or MSNBC when they're done. And, it's really good. You're in the administration. You get cushy contracts with the government because of it. You're friends with Joe. You get on boards. You make a lot of money and you don't do anything. So of course they want the Democrat to stay in charge. So they look at the polls just like we do, and they look at this breaking down old man, and they're like, he's not going to win. We got to ride a different horse. But that's not going to be Trump's calculus at all. And Biden, is under a lot of pressure, and who knows, maybe he'll succumb to that pressure and step down. But Trump's not going to succumb to any pressure from anybody. He wants to be president. He feels, and I would say based on what I saw in that debate, he's about where he always was. Again, unhinged, but not particularly, not demented particularly. I know Arlen feels differently. Maybe Arlen's right. I could be wrong. No. And there's another reason why if you're Trump or Republicans, you'd be like, well, who's got a better chance? I know there was some polling that showed Nikki Haley had a better shot. I don't think so. Trump activates his base. Nikki Haley doesn't activate nothing. So yeah, Trump ain't stepping down, and anyone who it's weird. It was weird to even see that. So I thought I would billboard that. Okay, why do I think Brianna Joy Gray is the best out there? Besides, she's like the second best, I guess. But what do I really like? Well, I thought she did such a good job. This is such a good comment. And she doesn't get all pissy and angry like I do, and kind of lose her crap the way I do sometimes. She really handled Kim Iverson. And I know she probably feels, Brianna Joy Gray there on the left, I know she probably feels like, Kim Iverson did me a solid and she had me on right after I got canned from my, sweet gig with the Hail Rising. And that's all true. But in the end, Kim Iverson's kind of libertarian, I guess, as best I could say. And that's just not even close to what Brianna Joy Gray, or what I was accused. Somebody called me a libertarian. Like, why would you ever think that? I am so not. I think it's because I'm very critical of the Democrats. So people think, well, you must be a libertarian. And I'm not a communist. I'm not even really a socialist. I believe in private property. I think, part of being human means you have some things for yourself. Not everything is shared, but we have a duty to each other and we make sure that everyone has enough and no one has too much. But that doesn't mean no private property. That doesn't mean everything is collective. Some things should be healthcare, police, fire, education, not restaurants, not doors. The private sector does a really good job making doors, as I've said before. All right, here they are. Let's talk about, we're talking about solutions. They're going to give 2 solutions. One of them I really, really, really like, and I don't think you'll have any trouble guessing in advance who's the candidate, or who's the woman on that screen, whose picture on that screen. To the left, Brianna Joy Gray. To the right, Kim Iverson. Which one do I agree with in advance? I'm sure you can figure it out even before I play the video, but we'll get there. And by the way, again, if you get towards the end of the program, but I'd love to have you join me right now. Let me remember that. 240-242-5646. Okay, here we go. Let's see if we can get this up for you.
Trump was like the most, in my mind, on that question.
All right, so let me fade it over there to you. And I'm not going to play that beginning, but Iverson, you can see me scooting through it. Iverson is an RFK Jr. fan. She wants you to vote for RFK Jr. And this is one thing I really like about this debate. Let me just say this. When I watch so-called progressives like Kyle Kulinski, like Crystal and Sagar. Sagar ain't no progressive, so I won't say she's. But they're not talking about, well, time to move in a different direction. Because remember, Jill Stein famously touted Kyle and Crystal's endorsement, or Crystal and Kyle's endorsement of her. Right? She said, oh, look, guess who supports me? Crystal and Kyle. And I went to some lengths to debunk that and point out, no, they don't. I wish they did, but no, they don't. They're not really progressive. And you know what, Jill Stein? I support you for president, but don't lie. Don't tell me that they've endorsed you when they haven't. And one way you know that Crystal and Kyle haven't endorsed Jill Stein is that in the aftermath of the debate, they didn't say, okay, now it's clear. You can vote for Jill Stein. She's clearly the best candidate. Biden's gaga. Biden's lost his mind. They did say that. If you watch Crystal and Kyle, they spend hours dissecting every moment of Biden's debate performance, and they were scathing. They ripped him a new one. They're clear that he is not fit to run for president again. And I pretty much agree with that, actually. But if I were I am, as a Jill Stein supporter, I will use this as an opportunity to say, well, we agree Trump isn't acceptable. We didn't agree that Biden wasn't acceptable, but now I think there's a consensus, a recognition that he's not fit to be president. So who is? Let's go to Jill Stein. Woohoo! Let's get going. Let's move forward with Jill. Seems kind of pretty obvious, doesn't it? But Kulinski and Crystal Ball don't do that. That's because they didn't endorse Jill Stein. That's because they don't support Jill Stein for president. That's because they don't want to make enemies of the Democratic establishment. That's why I love Brianna Joy Gray, because she doesn't give a crap what the Democratic establishment thinks, wants. She's not involved in that nonsense. She's just like, who's the best candidate? Who should I support? I will support the best candidate. So here is Crystal discussing the race.
An analogy, making a metaphor about the number one crisis that's facing American voters being to break the duopoly, and analogizing that.
All right, so let me stop it. What she's talking about there is how Kim Iverson is saying you have to vote for RFK Jr. Because what Iverson says is the biggest crisis America faces is this corporatized duopoly. Two major political parties that are both controlled by corporate elites. I pretty much agree with her that's a terrible, terrible problem. So Iverson is saying, because that is the problem, we must vote en bloc against the duopoly for the candidate who has the best chance to defeat the duopoly. For Kim Iverson, that's RFK Jr. Brianna Joy Gray shreds that argument.
To the number one focus of Palestinians, Gazans, being that they're in the middle of a genocide.
So what Gray is saying is, let's analogize. You're saying, as Americans, our biggest problem is this corporatized duopoly. And for Gazans, their biggest problem is that they're being genocided by Israel. So Gazans are united against genocide. We need to unite against the duopoly. I don't think those are perfect analogies by any means. I mean, I'm putting aside whether, it's fair to compare our political system, as bad as it is, as corrupt as it is, as misguided, as wrong as it is, with the actual plight of a people that are being destroyed. I don't know if I would use that, but I'd also say it's not true. Iverson blames the duopoly for our problems, but the duopoly serves the function of carrying water for the billionaire class. The problem isn't the duopoly. The problem is that the decisions that are made in this country that matter, that impact you, are by and large made by the billionaire class. A handful of people control decision-making in this country, and the duopoly does their bidding. But if you got rid of the duopoly, that wouldn't necessarily take down the billionaire class. It wouldn't necessarily take power from the billionaire class. You could elect somebody who's not a member of the duopoly, but who's all in for the billionaire class. Kind of like RFK Jr., whose Veep is a billionaire.
Yeah, or people in communism, or people in poverty, or people that
I'm going to leave the communism example for a second and just focus on those two if I can.
Sure.
So I do wonder if there's not a great deal of irony in the idea that we can understand for analogy purposes how important it is to resist a genocide. But the argument, and correct me if I'm wrong, you seem to be making is that it's worth ignoring that the guy that you think has the best chance of breaking the duopoly is, I would argue, the strongest, or they're all maybe all tied for being extremely strong in supporting that very genocide. Do you see?
Right. So when I look, her eyes sort of half closed, I want to stop that. So what? Yeah, that looks better than, at least her eyes aren't half closed. I just want to stop the clip there. So Brianna Joy Gray is saying, look, RFK Jr. is all in for Israel. And Iverson's going to kind of push back a little bit against that idea, but he's made it clear. Israel's our ally. We need to support Israel. He said that over and over again. He has refused to take on Israel as RFK Jr. And he refused to take on the billionaire class. That's why he's all in for things like crypto, which is just a scam. It's more tulip bulbs. It's just a way to separate people from their money, is crypto. That's why he's backed away from supporting, the environmental causes that he once championed. That's why he's basically said, we just need to let the market do its work. Because he is as bad. He's just as bad as the other two when it comes to championing the interests of the billionaire class. No, he's not a member of either political party at this moment. But so what? If he's going to pursue policies that the billionaire class wants, what does it matter?
You're acknowledging that's a really big thing, so much so that you're using it for the basis of an analogy, but also saying that shouldn't be a factor in choosing which one of the duopoly breakers we choose to put our vote behind.
Right. I'm using the analogy of the genocide, not as a point of whether or not you support or you don't support whatever's going on over in Israel and Gaza. The people in...
Which is so strange. I don't understand that. Why wouldn't you say, no, this is an incredibly important issue? Why wouldn't you say, Kim Iverson, genocide is just wrong, and we're supporting it because there's a cabal of super rich people in this country who are all in for Israel. Some of them apparently, I guess, are true believers and really think this is the right thing to do. And others are making mint off of the war, off of the killing. But either way, why wouldn't you make that a litmus test for whom you support? And you're saying, oh, it doesn't really matter. As long as they're not part of the duopoly, I don't really care how they feel about genocide, which I think is a terrible thing, by the way.
Palestine have one concern and one concern only that overrides every other concern that they have, as they should. Because would it make sense for Palestinians to strife amongst one another inside of Palestine and squabble over politics or squabble over religion amongst themselves, keep the infighting going? That's exactly what Netanyahu's strategy was. In fact, his strategy was divide and conquer.
Right. So, and that is true to a degree, right? Because there was the Palestinian Authority. There were various groups that were trying to take control of Palestine. He supported, Netanyahu, the worst one. But RFK Jr. provides that exact same function. He provides a alternative to a real progressive, right? A true progressive, someone who was taking on, I don't always agree with everything in the Green Party. There's things about the Green Party I don't like. They're far too, in my opinion, invested in identity politics, for example. But, and when I say identity politics, I mean where you look at the skin of the person, you say, well, we have to have this many, and we have to have that many, and we have to have a representative sampling of every group known to personhood. And if you're a member of a particular identity group, you're a victim. And if you're a member of a different group, you're a victimizer. No, that's ridiculous. But if you say, hey, I'm African American, I want a candidate whose policies will benefit poor, struggling, working African Americans, I get that. That's fine, right? That's good. Your community is important to you. That's your community. You want a community that's vibrant, that's healthy, that's strong. But if you're a billionaire Jewish person and your community is Israel, no, you don't get to kill other people. No, that identity politics doesn't go that far. It goes as far as, I want a fair deal for my people. I want justice for my people. And when my people have justice, which is this, enough, where we all have enough. And I'm going to do that for other groups too. That's the kind of identity politics I support. But a lot of the Green Party platform isn't about that kind of identity politics. It's about, well, if you're this color or you're that religion or you're this nation of origin, you're a victim. No, that's BS. I don't accept that. And Iverson, for some reason, seems to think that this RFK Jr. is just as important, just as valid a vessel for destroying the duopoly. Well, maybe he would take on the duopoly, but in the end, the billionaires would still be in charge.
And that has been quite effective. So it's better for Palestinians. It's better for all people when they're up against Goliath to put all of their differences aside, don't allow for the divide and conquer, and instead hyper-focus on the one thing that is going to liberate them. And that is what the Palestinians are starting to do more. I think now there's polls of who they support and who they rally behind now and how certain people or groups have gained in popularity.
I mean, she's just scrambling here. Obviously, Palestinians are doing, what could be worse? They're being destroyed. But it's our job, it's our duty, because we have power. We have morality we have the moral authority, if we want to use it, to deter Israel. She won't do that. She's like, oh no, Bobby Kennedy. Ridiculous.
And when you can focus yourselves rather than divide and conquer, rather than be divided.
All right, so she doesn't really. But the point here again is that it's not the duopoly that's the problem ultimately. It is a huge problem. It is a roadblock. But it's just it's just one of the appendages of the billionaire class octopus that is throttling, choking us off, choking the life out of us, all of us. And RFK Jr. is not going to take on the billionaire class. And frankly, he's not even going to take on the duopoly. That's what's most ironic about all of this is that he's not even going to take on the duopoly. He is perfectly happy to become part of the duopoly. I found this to be quite extraordinary. After Kim Iversen, maybe it was even before, I don't know which happened first, but her whole argument is, well, we need someone to take on the Republicans and the Democrats, that the problem for all of us is the Republicans and the Democrats. And RFK Jr. at least can defeat the Republicans and the Democrats. RFK Jr. is all set to become a Democrat.
Reached out to you, Bobby? Would you be talking to him?
Of course I would talk to them. It would put me on the ballot with nobody trying to get me off. Yeah. I'm going to be on the ballot at this point in every state by mid-July. But I'm going to have the the DNC suing me in every state, so to get me back off of it again. So I would talk to somebody.
Sure. I would join the Democratic Party if I can get on the ballot as a Democrat. I'll do it. Well, how the hell is that? Well, I mean, doesn't that completely destroy Kim Iversen's argument, which was a very weak one to begin with, that, well, we should vote for RFK Jr. because we have to cut the head off the octopus, which is the duopoly. Well, the octopus isn't the duopoly. The duopoly is a tentacle of the octopus. The octopus is the billionaire class. It's big tech. It's big pharma. It's media. It's that's what it is. That's who makes the decisions. It's the entertainment industry. And they're perfectly happy with the duopoly because they both provide controlled opposition. There's very limited over-in window. And people like Bernie and AOC make sure that people don't go too far to the left. There are a few more people to the right, like, some, I guess, like a Marjorie Taylor Greene, who at least is against more aid for Ukraine, but she's easily defanged. So there's no hope from those kind of people. There's no hope from RFK Jr. There's no hope from the far right. You want a better world? I got one answer for you. Jill Stein. Not that she's going to win, but every other option is worse. Every other option is worse. And it's not like every other option is awful, is the bottom line. Is awful. So let me get to this. A couple comments from yesterday. I don't know who Critch650 is, but I really appreciate your comment. Hal, you're a big activist for fighting climate change. I wonder how you justify flying all the way to Germany and back if you're trying to fight climate change. So I did talk about this. I'm sure Critch heard this discussion, but maybe they didn't. But let's go to my response, because I posted my response. I posted a response. I think I just had it. Why did I shouldn't have ever deleted what I had. Slide deck bottom. That's what I want. So you can see what I wrote. I can't justify it. I mean, it's bad for the environment. Now, look, that plane was full. Every seat was taken. It's going back and forth. It really was. Honest, I couldn't believe it. Well, maybe not flying there. There were a few empty seats in the back where I was sitting. There were a few empty seats, so I got an empty seat to my right, which was nice. My son was sitting in front of me. We each had an empty seat to our right, which was nice for us. We had aisle seats, so that was a little better. In steerage, way in the back of the plane. Coming back from Germany, from Frankfurt, every seat on the flight to Baltimore, I don't believe there was one empty seat. It was a completely packed plane. That plane's flying whether I'm on it or not. But that's not a good excuse, because my added weight, my son's added weight, our luggage does mean the plane has to burn more fuel. So, yes, I contributed to the climate crisis. This was not an essential trip. It was not necessary. It was something I really wanted to do. And I did it. And lots of other people do that too. This is who we are as people. We're going to do things that we may recognize aren't great for everybody, but we do it because we want to do it for ourselves. And lots of people, in fact, don't even think about the climate crisis. It's not even in their minds. They may know it's hotter and hotter. They may feel really uncomfortable. It was 85, 86 degrees pretty much every day in Northern Europe, where it used to maybe be 70s most of the time. So it's not pleasant. Our lives aren't as nice as they used to be because of all that fossil fuels that we're burning in certain ways. In other ways, I get to go to Germany, which I wouldn't have before. But then I wouldn't need to go to Germany if we had a more pleasant, people move around more because their home environments aren't as rich and beautiful as they once were. So we have to go elsewhere. But look, this is what we do. So, and I recognize that. So I say, well, what are ways to incentivize conservation, to incentivize reduce, reuse, and maybe recycle, because recycling isn't always very good. But how do we incentivize reduce, reuse? Well, raise the price of the energy. It seems perfectly clear to me. And then if you use the money that's spent, the added expense and taxes that fossil fuel tax would cause, and you return it to the people, poor, struggling, working people who consume less fossil. They don't jet off to Germany the way I just did. They'll get a little bit of money. If I decide to go anyway, if the price of that ticket is doubled, and instead of paying $500, $600, I think it was about $600, I don't want to misrepresent, instead of paying $600 per ticket, for a return ticket there and back for $600, instead of paying $600, I have to pay another $500 or $600. Maybe it's doubled. Well, maybe I don't go, right? Maybe I just say I'm not going to go, which would be good. Then there's less fossil fuels burnt. But then maybe I do go, because and that's what another commenter says. He says here, being Shade. I don't think he minds my outing him. He posted this, so I hope he doesn't mind. He says that my carbon tax, my fossil fuel tax, which would be, let's double the price of that flight, is that it would end up denying some members of the working class the ability to drive far enough to find decent paying work. I put that in pink. But it does nothing that would seriously affect him personally, including trips here to watch whatever, soccer. So, well, it would affect me. I'd have to pay more money. And I might not do it. Part of the reason we went, I don't know. I'd have to talk it over with my wife. We'd consider a lot of things. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't have gone. But it would affect me personally, one way or the other. And even if it didn't stop me from going, there'd be an extra $600 that would be redistributed from me to people who have less, which would also be a good thing. Now, Shade would say, yes, okay, I get all that, but that $600 will be spread, just a little bit to everybody. But somebody who, say, lives 3 hours, lives out in North Dakota and has to drive 120 miles for work, they wouldn't be able to do it. And my answer is there will be some people. Yes, there are going to be working class people who would be negatively impacted by a fossil fuels tax, the kind that I envision. You're right. And that's going to have to happen because we need to change the economy. We need to change the incentives. There are some jobs now that are not sustainable. I had this argument with clients when I was on KRXA 540 that who had a landscaping business, and they were mowing lawns and they were driving all over the county to do yard work for people. And they were like, hell, we burn a lot of gasoline. What you're saying is that we would have to pay more for all that gasoline. We can't afford it. We're barely making good now. And you know what? My answer is you're probably right. Probably landscaping is the kind of business, unless you get all electric tools, which is still going to be hard, and you still have to drive, right? Landscaping business is hard because you go from place to place. I guess you could, in the end, get a electric car. There are ways to get around it, and probably people would landscape. People landscaped in the 18th century. You go to Versailles, they have all those topiaries. Those were landscapers who were shaping the plans. So presumably there would be landscaping visions, but you're right. Some people would really find that they couldn't continue to do what they were doing. And that's what that's what we have to do as a society, is move away from fossil fuel intensive professions. But, and what I always say, but everyone has to have enough. People who suffer detriment in this way, we have to make sure they still have health care, or they finally have health care, because they may not have health care. That their kids will get a good education regardless and won't go into debt for it. That they'll be able to retire securely. We can make life better for all working class Americans, or virtually all. Even those who would otherwise suffer from a fossil fuels tax. But we can make life better for just about everyone who doesn't make, or isn't in a family where the income is over 100,000. Everyone could be better off in that group if we started taxing fossil fuels appropriately, if we rebated the money that's collected, if we guaranteed. And we might need to raise taxes on the billionaire class even more, much more. I would support that. I think we probably would need to. We're not going to do any of this unless we greatly reduce wealth and income inequality, unless we have elect people like Jill Stein who are committed to reining in the rich and protecting poor struggling workers. Is it going to happen? Not if Kim Iverson gets her way. Apparently not if Crystal and Kyle get their way. But yeah, if Brianna Joy Gray and I get our... This is the final point I'll make, and it really distresses me. I don't know where to go, right? I talk about what I believe is important, and I did some canvassing for the Green Party, but it's not like that's some sort of tight-knit, tight, strong, efficient organization. If you lived in Munich in 1920, and you were bitter and angry about Germany's loss in the world, you had a place to go. You could go to the Nazi party, but there were other parties too. There were a lot of crazies out there who were vowing to make Germany great again. And they would meet, and they would get drunk, and they would beat people up. Maybe they were Jewish, maybe they were communists, maybe they were neither. Maybe if you were a communist, you'd beat up Nazis, right? We don't have that. What do we have? Where is there a coherent group of dedicated people who are determined to, as Kim Iverson wants, get rid of the duopoly, but not, as Kim Iverson wants, replace it with true pro-people, pro-worker parties? Where are those people? Because I don't see them. I don't know them, and I'm struggling to find them. All right, that'll do it for me. Hope you have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm glad I got the show. I'm really glad I got to do it today. I was a little worried. And like I said, we'll have the better audio tomorrow with well, I'll replace the video. I took it off with Arlen from yesterday with good video, with good audio this afternoon. Take care.